Morning, coffee, email. The same routine that's worked for years. Then a notification. Insurance premium increased. Again, you stare at the number. Not catastrophic. Just enough to make everything feel a little tighter. Nothing dramatic happened. No sudden collapse. No single mistake. A bill arrived. A cost reset. Something small happened at the wrong time. And suddenly, a life that felt stable didn't feel stable at all. That's the part people struggle to explain. On the surface, everything still looks fine. The job is there. The routine is intact. Nothing is obviously broken. And yet, the sense of safety is gone. This video isn't about panic. It's about why stability itself now feels fragile, even for people who did everything right. For a long time, a stable life had a clear meaning. Predictability. You knew roughly what your expenses would be. You could plan months ahead. A small emergency didn't threaten the entire system. Stability wasn't about being rich. It was about margin. Room for error. Room for bad timing. Room for life to happen without everything falling apart. One unexpected cost didn't undo years of effort. Time worked in your favor because the environment moved slowly. That's the version of stability most advice was built around. Save 3 months of expenses. Pay down debt. Stay employed. Do those things, and you'd be fine. And for a while, that worked. But somewhere along the way, the foundation shifted. And that's the version many people are still chasing, even though it quietly disappeared. What changed wasn't just income, it was expenses. Costs that used to be stable now reset upward. Rent doesn't gently rise anymore. It jumps. And once it jumps, it rarely comes back down. A family renews their lease. Same apartment, same neighborhood. $300 more per month. No upgrades. No explanation. Just the new rate. They can afford it, technically. But that $300 was the buffer. The part that absorbed the unexpected. Now it's gone. Insurance premiums reset higher. Healthcare costs expand. A routine checkup now costs what an emergency visit used to. Utilities, transportation, basic services all move faster than paychecks. In 2015, rent took 30% of income for many households. Today, it's closer to 40%. The gap didn't come from lifestyle inflation. It came from the baseline resetting. On paper, nothing looks extreme. Each individual increase feels manageable. But the math underneath no longer balances. A stable income now sits underneath unstable costs. And that's the core problem. When expenses float upward but income moves slowly, stability becomes fragile by default. Not because people mismanage their lives, but because the structure changed. In the past, stability had buffers. Savings weren't just money. They were time. Time to recover. Time to adjust. Time to absorb a hit without panic. Today, those buffers erode quietly. Savings don't disappear overnight. They drain slowly. A little more here. A little more there. The car breaks down. Not totaled. Fixable. But the repair costs $1,200. 5 years ago, that would have been annoying. Today, it's a calculation. Do we fix it now or risk it breaking again? Do we use the credit card or drain what's left in savings? Either way, the margin shrinks. You don't feel broke. You feel exposed. Instead of, we're fine. The thought becomes, we can handle one more thing. And then one more thing happens. A medical bill. A work trip that needs covering up front. A kid's school expense that wasn't in the budget. None of these are crises. But together, they compound. The emergency fund that was supposed to be 6 months is now 3. Then 2. Then a credit card balance that wasn't there before. This is why stable lives now feel tense. Not chaotic. Tense. Because the margin that once absorbed stress is gone. And without margin, every decision carries weight. When stability feels fragile, people become careful. They delay moves. They stay put. They avoid change. On the surface, that looks responsible. But in a shifting system, caution can quietly turn into risk. Someone stays in a job that's stable but stagnant. Not because they love it, because switching feels risky. 2 years pass. The industry moves. The skills gap widens. What felt like caution now looks like being stuck. Staying in place reduces options. Waiting reduces flexibility. The world moved, but you didn't. And now the gap costs more to close. The longer you hold still, the harder it becomes to adjust later. Stability starts to mean don't touch anything, and that's when anxiety sets in. Not because people are reckless, but because they feel trapped inside choices that no longer protect them. Here's the strange part. On the surface, nothing looks wrong. The job exists. The bills get paid. The routine holds. But internally, the calculation never stops. Every purchase becomes a negotiation. Every plan comes with a backup plan. Every decision gets filtered through. Can we afford this if something else goes wrong? This is an invisible crisis. There's no dramatic moment, no clear turning point, just a slow accumulation of tension that never quite releases. People don't talk about it because it's hard to explain. How do you describe feeling unstable when nothing is visibly broken? How do you articulate the weight of managing a system that used to manage itself? This is why stable people now feel unstable. Not because they're failing, but because they're constantly holding something together that used to hold itself. This doesn't mean stability is gone. It means its definition changed. Stability is no longer about having everything fixed. It's about how well your life absorbs change. Not perfection, not certainty, but adaptability. The most stable people today aren't the ones with flawless plans. They're the ones with room. Room to adjust. Room to respond. Room to move when the ground shifts. This isn't about constant movement or chasing risk. It's about not confusing stillness with safety. It's about recognizing that in a system where costs move faster than income, flexibility becomes the new foundation. That might mean building skills that transfer, reducing fixed obligations where possible, creating multiple small buffers instead of one large one. It's not a perfect solution, but it's a different strategy for a different reality. If a stable life feels fragile right now, it's not because you failed. It's because the environment became less forgiving. Small disruptions cost more. Waiting costs more. Standing still carries weight. The rules changed quietly. No announcement. No warning. Just small shifts that compounded. Understanding this shift doesn't solve everything. It doesn't make rent cheaper. It doesn't restore the buffers. But it does something important. It replaces confusion with clarity. It turns invisible pressure into a map. And maps, even incomplete ones, are better than walking blind. In a world where the rules changed quietly, clarity is the closest thing to stability left.